So one of the things that John said in the video was that as a species, we're not very good at evaluating information on the internet. But then he went on to say, and we've never been very good at it. And so we're going to talk for a few minutes about why we might not be very good about it, unless there's some questions. There has been a real expansion in learning how our brains work. Many organizations, including Harvard University and a lot of places, Center for Healthy Minds, Project Implicit, and this organization that has this website called Outsmarting Human Minds. And the link to this will be in the YouTube comments. Outsmarting Human Minds is an extension of Harvard University's Project Implicit, which was started by Mahzarin Banaji. And they have found ways to actually measure our biases that we have using the questions in a computer. But they've also done a lot of studies about, say, for example, you have two candidates and one is more personable than the other candidate. And that personable candidate really tells lies, let's say, for example, and the other candidate actually addresses issues. But because we are used to judging people on how they look and how they interact warmly or not, often we will vote for that other candidate. So at Outsmarting Human Minds, they have videos and other information that you can use to help you recognize these patterns that we use and recognize them in ourselves when we're evaluating information. And because we wanted these series to be kind of short, like at 40 minutes, we're not going, and they have some wonderful videos there that you can watch that don't take very long to see. And that can really help us get better at evaluating information. So we have to understand our biases, and we also need to, it requires practice doing it. So what we're going to talk about in the next session, what we talk about is fact checking. But I thought it would be amusing to do some fact checking on myself. And so my father told me when I was a child that when he was a child, which was back in the 1930s, that they had the radio play The War of the Worlds on the radio, and that thousands of people rushed out of their homes and they were hysterical. And it was just, and I thought, oh, this is a really good example of how radio also propagated hysteria. And so I went and did some reading yesterday or several days ago. And it turns out that didn't, yes, there was a radio play, but it was scheduled. People knew it was happening. And people didn't run out of their homes in mass hysteria. Oh, good. Carolyn, since you did a college paper on it, you could tell us about it if you want to unmute yourself. I learned a lot of information.
It was, I'll just make a couple comments. It was interesting that there were people, though, who did panic, who spent their last dime to get a good pair of shoes so they could get as far away. I mean, it was done at a time when how we got our information had changed. So we were getting most of our information from the radio, news was coming on there all the time, and people assumed that what was on there was factual. It wasn't as big a hysterical event as it's been built out to be, but it was truly an impactful event on how people looked at the news they were getting on the radio after that.
Thank you. Yeah, that is really helpful. The other thing, though, that I found out in the reading that I was doing, and I'm sure Carolyn saw this too, is that newspapers around the country reported that there was panic. And they've done research since the 2000s and gone back and done the research. First of all, they found out that only 2% of the viewers, like the people that used to have, they do surveys to say, what are you listening to on the radio? In those surveys, only 2% of listeners were actually even tuned to that channel. And so the newspapers hyped it up. Does this sound familiar? So it was kind of a non-event, but because other newspapers were reporting it, it got reported again and again. And the reason I bring this up is because a lot of times we want to blame the internet as being the problem. Well, the internet certainly isn't helping, but the problem is part of being a human being. So that was an amusing fact-checking story on myself, and fact-checked my father and me and everybody. The non-amusing fact-checking story, which we are going to follow throughout the series, is that I was reading my Facebook feed yesterday, and one of the pundits that I follow posted a friend of hers, or somebody she follows on Facebook, and they had this map. And if this map is big for everybody for a second, this is a map of the power grid. And I looked at this map and I'm going, oh, this is interesting. I should probably go do some fact checking about this grid. And I checked to the degree to say that yes, that this map is accurate to a degree. There are things about this map that are not accurate. But then I went and looked on the internet to see how other people were reporting about it. And people on a variety of sides of this issue of the fact that Texas has its own grid, were using the same map to make different points. So we are going to return to this map and look at it from other perspectives, because there are other things about the map and how it was posted over time. And so I'm wondering if anybody has any other questions or comments that they want to make. Or if Charlie, if you see something in chat that I have missed, you can unmute yourself and say. But what we're going to talk about next week is we're going to talk about fact checking, and it's very important. And just like all the crash course videos, he talks very quickly. But the really good news is you can go to the crash course video site. It's on YouTube. Just look up crash course navigating digital information, and you can watch again. And I always learn more when I watch again and again. So that's really helpful. So we're going to do this next week, and I don't see any questions. So to get links from the chat that people have been adding, books and other things, go to our website, which is at kittitasleague.org. To continue this discussion or to start new questions about it, go to our Facebook page, and we're going to continue to have that. We can send the slides to you if you want them. I will go ahead and put my email address in the chat, and we'll post a link to the slides as well. There we go. Charlie's very good at answering these questions. And Charlie has posted to register in advance for this meeting. There's a link here. And I hope to see you next week. It'll be this meeting. Go ahead.
Catherine, this is Charlie.
Hi,
I just wanted to highlight Carolyn's note that as we get our information, particularly as the technology advances, it's usually also accompanied great societal upheavals, and initial assumptions about the method of receiving the information and the quality of that information are widely misjudged. And I think Mr. Green touched on that a bit, about the fact is this is all changing underneath us. How we get information, how we interpret information is a movable feast right now. And that makes it even more important that we be sure of our facts and our evidence, and that we get much better at parsing through, is this an opinion or is this fact, and is there evidence to back it up? And before I let this go and mute myself again, we are going to be able to continue this conversation on our Facebook page event for today's discussion. We'll be posting links there, and we can ask questions and answer them there as well. And we will also end up on our website, on our resources page, with our 10-week sessions. So we'll have each episode come up live there, where we will post additional information. Thanks.
Thanks, Charlie. And thanks for taking care of the technical details. It's hard to do both at one time. So we are going to sign off for today. And we'll be back here next week